The year was 2781, and Earth was no longer the shining blue world it once had been. The oceans were black and heavy with oil and ash. The sky glowed red from the burning of cities that had once been full of laughter, light, and life. Where there had once been music, there was silence. Where there had been hope, there was now only smoke. The last of humanity lived underground, deep inside bunkers hidden under mountains and ruined cities. They were broken, hungry, and tired, but not defeated. Among them was Commander Elise Carter, the last surviving officer of the United Terran Defense Fleet. Her uniform was torn, her hair streaked with gray, and her eyes carried the weight of every soul that had died under her command. She sat before a cracked console inside the Geneva Command bunker, surrounded by flickering lights and failing machines. Around her, the last members of the defense team worked silently, their faces pale and hollow. Outside, the world was gone, but beneath the surface, a final flame of human defiance still burned. Elise knew what was coming. The Zorath Dominion, an empire of powerful alien conquerors, was preparing to land on Earth. They had already destroyed Mars, crushed the colonies on Europa, and turned the lunar base into dust. They had sent a message to humanity demanding surrender. Their leader, Overlord Karzul, had mocked them, calling humans a primitive infestation clinging to dirt and smoke. But humanity never surrendered. The bunker trembled as another explosion rocked the surface. A soldier stumbled into the command room, his face smeared with soot. "Commander," he gasped, "they've broken through the last defense wall. We have maybe 10 minutes. Elise didn't look up from the console. Her fingers moved quickly across the keyboard, typing commands into an old communications relay. "Then we'll make those 10 minutes count," she said quietly. Her voice was calm, but inside her heart was breaking. The soldier hesitated. "Ma'am, what are you doing?" She looked at him with tired eyes. "I'm sending our last message to the stars." The bunker lights flickered. Power levels were dropping. The others gathered around as she adjusted the signal array, boosting it through old satellites still orbiting above. The system screamed warnings, but she ignored them. She leaned closer to the cracked microphone, her voice trembling only for a moment before it became steady, cold, and strong. "To all alien forces," she began. "This is Commander Elise Carter of the United Terran Defense. Earth has fallen, but humanity has not. We have fought you across the stars, we have burned in your fire, and still we stand. If you hear this message, know this." She paused, her eyes glistening with tears that caught the dim light. All around her, the room was silent. Even the machines seemed to listen. "Halt, or perish." Her voice echoed through the bunker like thunder. Then she pressed the transmit button. The message shot upward through the Earth's crust, passing through towers of ash, climbing into the torn sky, and bursting into the void of space. It traveled from one satellite to another, bouncing across dead relay stations and forgotten colonies. Somewhere far away, beyond the reach of human life, the words began to spread. A warning, a promise, and a curse. Elise leaned back, her hand trembling as she watched the signal strength rise. "Message sent," said the technician softly. It's gone, Commander. It's out there now." For a long time, Elise said nothing. The soldiers stood in silence, looking at her, waiting for her to speak. Finally, she smiled, a small, sad smile that still carried pride. "Then humanity still lives," she whispered. Outside, the ground shook again. The Zorath ships were descending, burning through the clouds like falling stars. The sky turned white and the earth cracked open. Inside the bunker, alarms wailed. The walls trembled. "Ma'am," said the young soldier, his voice shaking, "well, we have to go. There's an escape shaft leading to—" "No," Elise said firmly. "There's nowhere left to run." She stood tall, lifting her head as dust fell from the ceiling. "We were born on this world," she said softly. "And if this is where humanity ends, then we will end as we lived, defiant." The soldier hesitated, then saluted her, tears running down his face. "Yes, Commander." As the Zorath warship entered the atmosphere, Elise looked at the cracked monitor one last time. The screen still showed her message, repeating, bouncing across systems, multiplying. She closed her eyes and whispered again as if speaking to the stars themselves. "Halt, or perish." Moments later, the sky above Geneva became fire, but even as the bunker vanished in the storm, her voice traveled onward, through broken transmitters, through silent satellites, through the cold and endless dark, and somewhere, Far beyond the light of the dying Earth, the stars listened. The Earth had fallen. Smoke choked the skies. Oceans were poisoned, and the cities that had once touched the clouds were now little more than charred skeletons. But even in ruin, humanity's spirit lingered. Survivors moved like shadows in the underground tunnels, silent and wary, but never broken. They whispered the words that had become a prayer, a promise, and a weapon: halt or perish. In scattered bunkers and hidden colonies, humanity still fought. Not with vast fleets or towering war machines, they had none, but with cunning, courage, and the relentless will to survive. Small strike teams slipped through alien patrols, hijacking supply ships and sabotaging mining stations. Every time they struck, they left a single mark, a message for the Zorath to remember: halt or perish. For the Zorath, it was madness. They could not understand a species that continued to resist when there seemed to be nothing left. But humans did not fight because of logic or hope. They fought because they had no choice. To surrender was to erase their history, their culture, their identity. Humanity would die, but it would die proudly, leaving a warning written in fire across the stars. Deep in a hidden laboratory on the ruins of the old New York subway system, Lieutenant Marco Vela studied alien communications equipment. The Zorath had not expected humans to understand their technology, but humans had always been clever, adapting, twisting enemy tools into weapons of their own. Marco adjusted a transmitter that had once belonged to a Zorath fleet. Now it was humanity's voice carrying the final command to the galaxy: halt or perish. He paused, running his fingers over the scratched metal surface. His mind wandered to memories of his family. Lost when the cities fell, their faces burned into his heart. The thought of them, of every human who had died, gave him strength. The Zorath might think humans were extinct. They might think the Earth was nothing but ash. But as long as one human remained, they would speak. They would resist. Across the globe, in the ruins of the Amazon, survivors scavenged through the skeletal remains of forests. Ava Rios, barely 16, carried an old rifle that once belonged to her father. She crouched in a hollow tree, watching the alien patrols march through the scorched land. Her heart pounded, but she whispered the words her mother had taught her: halt or perish. Every human who spoke them felt the echo in their chest, a surge of pride and courage, a reminder that they were not just flesh and bone. They were humanity, and humanity would not vanish quietly. Time passed, and the Zorath tightened their grip. The skies burned brighter as more warships arrived, flattening what little remained on the surface. Yet humanity adapted. Underground networks connected bunkers across continents. Survivors shared tactics, mapped alien routes, and coordinated strikes with precision. The Zorath thought they were eradicating life, but humans were already moving in the shadows. Every attack they made left a trace, a whisper of defiance. Even the children understood. In hidden classrooms lit by dim lanterns, elders told stories of the brave soldiers who had sent Earth's final message. They drew pictures of burning warships and whispered the words with reverence, as if saying them aloud could make them come true: halt or perish. The Zorath, despite their power, grew uneasy. Reports came in of sabotage, ambushes, and sudden attacks from nowhere. Their scanners could not locate the humans who struck. It was as if the Earth itself had risen against them, teaching them fear. In a ruined city that had once been Paris, Commander Elise Carter's voice still played through broken transmitters, preserved in old data cores. Every soldier, every survivor heard it like a heartbeat. It reminded them that they were not alone. The commander had fallen with the Earth, but her message endured. Humanity's courage could not be erased, not even by fire and shadow. And so the war continued. Not one of grand fleets or monumental weapons, but of persistence, of resistance, and of spirit. Every human strike, every whispered phrase became part of a larger symphony of defiance. 1,000 years from now, perhaps other species would hear it. Perhaps they would tremble at the echo of Earth's last message. Halt or perish. Even in the ashes, hope flickered. Not a fragile hope, but a burning one. A hope that humanity's will, its stubborn refusal to vanish, could resonate beyond the limits of the stars. Somewhere deep in space, that message was traveling. Even the Zorath, arrogant and cruel, could feel it. An invisible chain linking the dead Earth to the void, daring any who approached to remember that humanity never died quietly. In the darkest corners of the ruined world, humans continued to fight. They were small, scattered, fragile, but unyielding. And though Earth's skies were black, the words they carried were like fire, burning a path into the stars. Halt, or perish. The galaxy would listen. One day, the Earth was gone, its oceans blackened, its skies scorched, and its cities reduced to rubble. Yet a single human voice carried through the dying satellites, continued its journey into the dark, cold void of space. It traveled faster than any ship, faster than any fleet. It was not just a signal. It was a declaration, a warning that the universe had not yet forgotten. Light years passed. The fragile message, repeating endlessly, crossed the empty spaces between dying stars and abandoned colonies. It passed through dead solar systems where planets had long since turned to dust. It carried the last echo of humanity's defiance: halt or perish. Somewhere in a galaxy far from Sol, a forgotten listening station on a lonely asteroid detected the signal. Its creators had vanished thousands of years before. Yet the machine, still humming, caught the broadcast. It replayed it over and over, sending it further along ancient relay channels. The words were strange to any alien ear, yet the emotion, raw, burning defiance, was undeniable. On the Galactic Council, a gathering of species older than most stars, the message finally arrived. Scholars, diplomats, and warriors crowded around their viewing spheres as the sound played. No one spoke at first. Then one elder, with skin like silver mist, whispered, "Is this possible? They are extinct. They should be gone." But the signal did not lie. It was alive, persistent, reaching into the very fabric of space itself. Even where humans had died, their message survived, rebounding through systems they had never known existed. The council members exchanged uneasy glances. None of their archives mentioned a race capable of such endurance. In a dark corner of the galaxy, smugglers paused their engines, starships trembling as they intercepted the message. "Halt or perish," they muttered. The words repeated, echoing in their minds, and a chill passed through them. The universe had always been cruel, and they had always assumed that extinct races stayed silent, but humanity refused to die quietly. Back near the remnants of the Sol system, the few remaining Terran AI nodes, left to guard the dead Earth, worked silently. Old satellites and orbital relays, once intended for communication and navigation, now served as amplifiers for the last human command. Every signal they broadcast carried fragments of emotion encoded centuries before. Every pulse of light into the void was a heartbeat of pride and vengeance. In hidden bunkers scattered across what remained of Mars, Europa, and the Moon, long-abandoned human colonies once thought lost finally responded, not with fleets, but with simple machines, automated programs left behind to continue the fight. They sent data streams, repeating the same words, reinforcing the signal across the void. Humanity's voice had become immortal, independent of flesh and bone. Far from human space, alien races began to take notice. Traders stopped their ships, scientists paused experiments, and soldiers lowered their weapons. The words were simple, but the meaning was clear. It was not just a warning. It was a threat born of pride, sorrow, and defiance, and it carried the unmistakable tone of a species that had nothing left to lose. Even the Zorath, arrogant conquerors who had crushed humanity centuries ago, began to feel unease. Reports came from distant scouts of strange energy readings, automated attacks on their supply lines, and signals repeating across sectors they controlled. The aliens could not locate the source, could not destroy it, and worst of all, they could hear the defiance in the words themselves. Some council members whispered about legend, a human spirit so strong that even death could not silence it. They turned their own extinction into a weapon, one said. Another added, "They are reminding us all that nothing human can ever be destroyed quietly." In the darkness of space, the message grew. It multiplied, ricocheted, and expanded, reaching systems that humans had never visited. Worlds that had never known Earth's blue skies were now touched by its last voice. Children in alien cities asked their parents what it meant, and their parents could only look at the stars and feel something foreign but undeniable. A mixture of fear, awe and respect. Back on what remained of the Earth, or where it had once been, nothing moved. The planet lay shattered and silent. Yet in the emptiness, humanity still existed. Not in bodies, not in cities, not even in armies, but in words, defiance and pride. The signal, persistent and burning, carried the eternal lesson of humans. Even when a species falls, even when the world dies around them, the voice of defiance can echo forever. The last message was simple, yet terrifying in its simplicity. Halt, or perish. And somewhere deep in the void, distant stars twinkled with uncertainty. The galaxy had heard the warning. The humans may have perished, but their courage, their spirit, and their voice were alive. Somewhere out there, something was listening. And for the first time, the universe realized that humanity had never been ordinary. Centuries passed, and the memory of Earth became legend. The galaxy had long assumed humanity extinct. The blue world was a ghost, its oceans dead, its forest burned, and its cities reduced to ash. Even the stars seemed dimmer above Seoul, as if mourning a lost race. But one thing remained, the message repeating endlessly across the void: halt, or perish. The Zorath Dominion, arrogant and merciless, had long forgotten the humans who once resisted them. Their fleets had conquered many systems, leaving devastation in their wake. Yet reports from deep space, scattered readings of a persistent signal, reached the ears of their warlords. At first they dismissed it. It had been centuries since humans had walked the stars. They were gone. Still, curiosity gnawed at them. Overlord Karzul, the same tyrant who had laughed at humanity's defiance, commanded a fleet to return to the Sol system. They sought minerals, abandoned stations, and the remains of a planet they had thought conquered. Thousands of warships pierced the void, engines roaring, weapons primed. They expected nothing. They expected silence. But the silence was a lie. As the Zorath ships neared the inner system, their scanners picked up faint energy bursts, ancient satellites broadcasting endlessly, repeating the old human warning. The message was fragmented, distorted, and yet it carried an unmistakable tone of challenge. Halt, or perish. The warlords laughed at first. Ghosts speak? One sneered. But the laugh faded quickly as energy readings intensified. The orbital systems around the shattered Earth began to flicker, and strange mechanical activity emerged from the debris. Machines long forgotten awoke as if sensing the return of the conquerors. Below the surface, in buried bunkers and hidden silos, automated defense networks hummed to life. Ancient Terran AI, programmed centuries ago, activated war machines designed to strike intruders with precision. The humans may have died, but their ingenuity had not. Every system, every relay, every weapon was now part of an endless trap, patiently waiting. A scout ship entered orbit around the old city of Geneva. Its sensors detected movement. At first it appeared to be nothing, just dust, rubble, and ruin. But then walls cracked and hidden turrets rose from the ground. Ancient cannons powered by energy cells that had survived centuries tracked the intruders. Automated drones flew out from crumbled launch bays, guided by long-dead human commands. The Zorath fleet panicked. "This is impossible," shouted a captain. "They are extinct." "Extinct?" muttered Karzul, his mandibles clicking in disbelief. "Yet the Earth moves against us." Missiles fired, but shields powered by AI centuries old reflected them harmlessly. Drones swarmed the invaders with terrifying coordination, striking weak points in the hulls. Ships that had once conquered star systems were torn apart as if the planet itself had risen. Even from destroyed satellites, Elise Carter's voice, recorded long ago, echoed through the Zorath communications. "This is Earth's last message. We warned you, halt, or perish." The words reverberated in their minds. It was not just a warning. It was defiance. Humans had been patient, meticulous, and relentless. The message was more than words. It was the spirit of a species that refused to vanish quietly. As the battle continued, the Zorath realized that the Earth they had believed dead had become something far more dangerous. Its ruins were alive with technology. and its message had become a weapon that no fleet could destroy. Panic spread through the ranks. Ships turned on each other in confusion. Systems overloaded, and the once mighty armada fell into chaos. From orbit, the remnants of the old planet watched silently, patiently. Machines fired, energy surged, and every attack was anticipated. The Zorath were learning a lesson that centuries of war had never taught them. Underestimating humans was fatal. Karzul retreated, screaming orders that could no longer be obeyed. His pride, his empire, and his arrogance were shattered in the span of hours. The Zorath had thought themselves unstoppable. They had believed Earth was a corpse. Yet the planet, the humans, and their message had proven otherwise. Even as the dust settled, the signal continued to pulse into space. The words repeated, carrying the memory of humans far beyond the system they had once called home. Halt, or perish. Somewhere in the galaxy, the legend of humanity grew. Stories of the extinct species that had defeated an empire before it could even touch their ashes spread across worlds. The name humanity became synonymous with defiance, courage, and indomitable will. And deep in the ruins of Geneva, in silent bunkers, the systems hummed quietly, waiting for the next intruder, the next challenge. Humanity had fallen, yes, but its spirit, encoded in machines transmitted across light years, would never be silenced. The stars themselves seemed to tremble at the echo of Earth's last message. Halt, or perish. The Zorath had returned to what they believed was a dead planet. They expected nothing but dust, ruin, and silence. What they did not expect was the Earth itself to fight back. The ground trembled as buried defense systems, silent for centuries, roared to life. Turrets unfolded from crumbled buildings. Long dormant energy cannons flared, and automated drones surged from hidden launch bays. The planet's heartbeat was mechanical, but it carried the spirit of every human who had ever lived. On the bridge of the Zorath mothership, alarms screamed in warning. Sensors failed to track the onslaught, as the weapons that fired at them were invisible until they struck. "Impossible!" roared Overlord Karzul. "How can a dead world attack us?" It was not magic. It was humanity. Every weapon, every defense mechanism, every last machine left behind by a species that refused to die was now activated by centuries-old AI. They moved with precision, striking at weak points, disabling shields, and tearing ships apart. The humans may have fallen, but their strategy, their cunning, and their indomitable will were still alive, encoded in circuits and data cores. Missiles launched from ancient silos aimed with deadly accuracy. Drones swarmed like black clouds, evading fire and striking relentlessly. The sky above the old continents lit up with explosions as the Zorath fleet, once confident and arrogant, was thrown into chaos. Ships that had never known defeat were shredded within minutes. And through every comm channel, every system hack, every broken relay, the voice of Commander Elise Carter played. Her words, recorded long ago, carried through alien networks as if spoken by the Earth itself. "This is Earth's last message. We warned you, halt, or perish." Each repetition carried a weight the Zorath could not ignore. Their arrogance, their empire, their pride shattered. Machines moved as if guided by human instinct, striking with a precision that no alien intelligence could match. Even the most hardened warlords felt fear creep into their hearts. In the debris-filled orbit of the former moon, energy beams carved through the void. Automated fighters, centuries old but perfectly preserved, engaged Zorath interceptors, overwhelming them with superior tactics. The invaders' numbers were meaningless. Earth had learned patience, and every attack was designed to exploit weakness. Below the surface, in hidden bunkers on the ruined continents, old human warships long buried in deserts and forests activated their engines. They emerged from the ruins, piloted by AI that carried centuries of human battle strategy. Each vessel moved with careful coordination, striking from unexpected angles, catching the Zorath completely off guard. Even the youngest alien soldiers realized too late that they had underestimated the humans. Every legend, every story they had heard about the species was true, but it was only a shadow of the reality. The humans had turned their extinction into a weapon, and that weapon was unstoppable. On one shattered continent, automated artillery struck a massive Zorath warship. Explosions tore through its hull, sending it spinning into space debris. Another ship fired back, but the Earth's orbiting satellites intercepted and redirected its energy, destroying it in a cascade of fire. Within hours, the once mighty fleet was reduced to burning fragments drifting in orbit. The survivors on distant outposts watched in awe. Even those who had never seen humans alive could feel the power of the message, transmitted across time and space. It was simple but terrifying. Halt or perish. The words became more than a warning. They became a statement of dominance, a legacy of defiance that even death could not erase. The Zorath, arrogant and cruel, now understood the truth. Humanity was not weak, nor fragile, nor easily destroyed. Humanity was eternal in spirit. In the aftermath, silence returned. Not the quiet of defeat, but the quiet of victory. The fires in orbit slowly died. The surviving Zorath retreated, humiliated and broken. Machines on the Earth paused, their mission complete, waiting patiently for the next threat. Beneath the surface, old bunkers hummed quietly. Every turret, every drone, every AI core was ready to rise again if needed. Earth had become more than a planet. It was a fortress, a monument, and a testament to human resilience. Humanity had fallen in flesh, but it had triumphed in spirit, and the galaxy had learned its lesson. Never underestimate a species that refuses to die. And somewhere, far beyond the reaches of Sol, the words continued to echo, carried by satellites, probes, and machines left in the void. Halt, or perish, the galaxy would remember. The Zorath would never forget. And the spirit of humans, burned into steel and circuits, would continue to shine through the darkness of space. Humanity had ended, and yet, in every pulse of energy, in every transmission, in every heartbeat of a machine, it lived on. The Zorath armada had been shattered, burned to fragments by machines and weapons left behind by a species they thought was extinct. Yet even after their defeat, humanity's message continued to travel. It spread across the stars, carried by satellites, probes, and AI relays, bouncing from system to system like a pulse of stubborn life. Halt, or perish. Worlds far from Sol heard it first as a faint signal, easily dismissed. But the longer it traveled, the clearer it became. It was no ordinary transmission. It carried something else, the spirit of a species that had refused to bow. It echoed with pride, defiance, and the courage of billions who had died believing in something greater than survival. In the councils of distant empires, the message caused confusion. Scholars argued about its origin. Military commanders felt unease creep into their ranks. Traders whispered it as a ghostly warning in crowded starports. Even civilizations that had never seen a human alive began to sense that this race, though vanished, had left a mark on the galaxy. On a desert world at the edge of the galactic rim, a young alien pilot named Tariq listened to the repeating words through an old communication terminal. "Halt or perish," he muttered over and over. The words were strange, but they carried weight. His elders had taught him that extinct species posed no threat. Yet something in the message made him shiver. A part of him, small and silent, knew that humans had not truly ended. Back in the ruins of Sol, the Earth's systems hummed quietly, aware of every transmission that left their orbit. Old AI cores, powered for centuries, amplified the message. Each broadcast was stronger, traveling farther, reaching places humans could never have imagined. Humanity's voice became immortal, woven into the very fabric of space. Stories began to spread. In distant sectors, alien historians pieced together what had happened. A species destroyed yet defiant, a world burned to ashes yet fighting back. Humans had not relied on fleets or massive armies to survive. They had used intelligence, ingenuity, and the relentless persistence of spirit. They had turned extinction into a weapon. Even the Zorath, humiliated and broken, could not ignore the echoes. Their fleets avoided certain sectors. Their warlords whispered of the humans' final message with fear. They are gone, one would say, and yet they speak. It became legend within their ranks, a story to terrify soldiers and commanders alike. The words repeated endlessly in their communication arrays, a ghost that haunted them across light years. And so, the galaxy learned. Planets once indifferent to the plight of humanity now recognized something extraordinary. The humans had fought not for empire, not for conquest, not for glory. They had fought for existence itself, and in the face of annihilation they had refused to kneel. Their final transmission was simple but powerful, a warning and a lesson to all who might underestimate them. Halt, or perish. Civilizations began to leave markers, small tributes to the humans they had never met. Ships were inscribed with the phrase "monuments carved in remote worlds," and the words taught in academies as the ultimate lesson in courage and defiance. Humanity had become myth and inspiration all at once. Even the youngest generations of aliens began to feel the truth of the message. It was not about fear alone. It was about hope, about resistance, about refusing to surrender to overwhelming odds. They heard in the words the echo of every human who had ever lived. The mothers, the soldiers, the children hiding in bunkers, whispering to each other that they were not alone. Somewhere, far beyond the reaches of what had been human space, a new civilization discovered one of the repeating signals. They studied it for years. In the vibrations of the transmission, they sensed the rhythm of life itself, the pulse of a species that refused to die quietly. And they realized that humans were more than flesh and blood. They were an idea, a force, a spirit that could outlast time. Back in the ruins of Sol, the Earth's automated systems paused only briefly before resuming their endless watch. Every relay, every transmitter, every dormant weapon continued to serve the same purpose: to broadcast the last human command, to echo through eternity. The planet may have been lifeless, but humanity's spirit was immortal. Halt, or perish. The galaxy could hear it. The stars themselves seemed to shimmer with the defiance of a species that had died, yet continued to fight. Humans had ended, yes, but their voice carried on, a song of courage, of pride, and of the unbreakable human spirit. In every corner of the galaxy the words repeated, a warning to the arrogant and a beacon to the brave. Somewhere, in the vastness of space, a new race paused, feeling the weight of the message. They did not yet understand it fully, but they knew one thing: humanity was a force that could not be ignored. Extinct or alive, they had left an indelible mark on the universe, and the echo of the last human command continued, as it would forever. Halt, or perish. Centuries had passed since the last human voice had left Earth. The planet lay in ruins, its oceans poisoned, its skies scorched, and its continents shattered. Yet something extraordinary had happened. The long-dead machines, buried bunkers, and silent satellites had kept humanity's final message alive. Every pulse, every transmission, every flicker in the void carried one simple, terrifying command: halt, or perish. The galaxy had listened. Empires had learned caution. Traders had whispered warnings, and scholars had written the tale of a species that refused to vanish. Humanity had become legend, a ghost that haunted the stars and inspired the living. But now, Earth itself began to stir. The centuries of neglect had not left the planet completely lifeless. Slowly, silently, nature returned. Seeds long buried beneath ash sprouted in the cracks of ruins. Streams of pure water trickled through fractured mountains. Forests began to reclaim abandoned cities, their roots entwining with the bones of steel and stone. Even in death, Earth had begun to heal. On the plains of what had once been Geneva, a monument rose from the rubble. It was a statue of a woman, Commander Elise Carter, her hand raised as if warning the stars themselves. Her face, carved in metal and stone, carried pride, determination, and the defiance of an entire species. At the base, in every language the galaxy could understand, were carved the words, "We warned you once." That was enough. Far away, alien explorers approached the system for the first time. They expected lifeless ruins, the cold bones of a dead world. Instead, they found forests, rivers, and a strange pulse of energy that hummed beneath the soil. The satellites and relays, still active after centuries, greeted them. They picked up the endless echo of the message, the voice of a species long gone but never silent. The explorers watched in awe. Machines moved with subtle precision. Automated drones hovered silently, and hidden turrets scanned the skies. The humans were gone, yes, but their presence was everywhere. Their defiance had become immortal, encoded into Earth itself. In the ruins, the AI systems hummed quietly, aware of every movement. Every device, every weapon, every relay was ready, patient, eternal. Humanity had ended in flesh, but their will had never died. They had left behind a planet that would guard their message and their memory, a sentinel in the void, a lesson to all who might underestimate them. Somewhere in the distance, the Zorath who had survived fled the system, carrying stories of what they had faced. Empires listened to their reports, and slowly, fear and respect spread. Humans had been destroyed, yet they had beaten the conquerors through patience, planning, and sheer will. Their legacy was written across space. In every sector their message had reached. Even among new species, born long after Earth's fall, the legend endured. They heard the echo of the final human command in every corner of the galaxy. Some whispered it as prayer, others as warning, and some as inspiration. The words transcended meaning. They became a symbol of courage, resistance, and hope. Halt, or perish. On Earth, the monuments of old bunkers and ruined cities began to blend with new life. Forests grew through shattered skyscrapers, streams ran through broken streets, and the air slowly cleared. The planet was healing, slowly but surely. Somewhere deep underground, the system still hummed, preserving the message and protecting the world from any who might seek to exploit it. And in that quiet, the galaxy began to understand what humans had always known: that life is more than survival. That courage is measured not in fleets or weapons, but in the refusal to surrender. That a species, even when broken, can rise beyond death through spirit, through intelligence, and through defiance. The stars twinkled over Seoul, reflecting the last human message back into the void. Explorers, scientists, and even the wary of war paused to listen. The echo carried a timeless truth. Humanity may fall in body, but never in spirit. And somewhere across countless light years, another presence, unknown, curious, cautious, heard the repeated transmission. The voice was simple, yet it held centuries of emotion, defiance, and wisdom. Halt, or perish. For the first time, the universe felt the weight of humanity not as a threat, but as a legacy. A species that had fallen, yet taught the galaxy to respect, to fear, and to admire them. Earth was no longer just a planet. It was a monument, a guardian, and a symbol of what it meant to be human. And so, the final echo continued through the stars. It would not stop. It would not tire. The words, simple and eternal, would outlast empires, civilizations, and time itself. Halt, or perish. The galaxy listened, and somewhere deep in the unknown it understood. Humanity was gone, but it had never truly ended.